of E-FWD. I'm here in the London studio today to talk about the energy transition. I've got with me John Fotherby from Kingsfield Academy, who's going to shed some light on some of the engineering challenges in the energy transition and quite how we should think about tackling them. I think we're at a very interesting time for the energy industry as a whole, and obviously the sort of the knock-on ramifications for the world. But looking at the sort of drilling into the energy transition, how should we deliver what we need to achieve those lofty aspirations?
Well, first of all, I think the objectives for energy transition are on-time delivery, within budget, and start-up as planned. Because we need that move away from the conventional industries, oil and gas, into the new industries. However, the contractors and the players in the main that are delivering them are more or less the same from the conventional oil and gas business moving into energy transition. Very similar. The problem is that the track record of engineering construction internationally on major projects is not great. And there's been plenty of reports done over the last 15 years or so which show that only 1 in 4 projects actually achieve the on-time delivery, on-budget delivery and start-up as planned. So if we continue like that, it's not going to be really healthy for energy transition projects and the objectives that we really need to meet. And therefore, we need to look at the energy transition projects. And let's start from the point of view that compared to the conventional oil and gas projects, it's not business as usual. And there's a number of reasons for that. We have new investors coming in that are not familiar with the practices. We have new technologies being developed. There's some existing technologies and things are evolving. It's great stuff that's going on. Obviously, we need to drive time and budget and start up on time, as I just mentioned. And that return on investment between the conventional projects and energy transition projects is completely different. So we're in a different world. So we have to really start thinking and behaving very differently. Now, what we've seen so far in, say, solar and offshore wind farms, just as examples, is that these are not great technological developments like carbon capture or something. They're fairly straightforward, but we're seeing disasters in terms of delivery in those areas simply because we're applying the same approaches as we've done to the conventional projects, which are already showing that they don't work. So that has to stop. If you want to deliver those projects well, there has to be a rethinking right from the conceptual stage through to project delivery. It just simply has to be different. And what that difference looks like is more working together between the contracting parties than fighting each other.
That sometimes seems like a big challenge for these companies who obviously in some senses are kind of competing. How do they go from being competitors to being collaborators? Well,
I think that we've got really two different types of investors. We've got investors such as the big oil majors, which are not really great players in any transition, really. I mean, there's some that's playing. And they know the business, and the contractors in the supply chain know how to work with them. The new investors don't know, and I dare say don't care about what our traditions are in the industry. They want to invest in energy transition, and they want to do it now, and they want to make money out of it, but they don't know how to do it. And I think the supply chain, the contractors, supply chain, the experienced people need to work with them to help them. They need to get them to understand what's the art of the possible. But what that means is that contractors have got to change their mindset. They've relied upon the investors, the owners, providing feed documents and so on and so forth. All this is out there. Nobody's going to do that. But you still have to have something that the contractors can work with and develop the project from an engineering and then into procurement, then into construction and commissioning and so on and so forth. That has to follow it, and it's no different. it's that starting point. How do we work together? And I think the mindset changes fundamentally. The employers and the contractors and the supply chain need to think project success, not self-success. And that the parties that are getting together to deliver the project are looking at that success and then sharing in it, which means we have a completely different view on how risks are managed. How are the risks shared? How are they rewarded? So it's a completely different thinking to what we've been doing so far. And the barrier is the thinking. It's breaking that, it's people realising that if we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, as is accredited to Einstein, it's signs of madness.
And so what's the worst case scenario if things don't go as planned? If we continue with this sort of model that clearly is not fit for purpose?
I think there's two stages here. The first stage is, and we have to bear in mind that the oil and gas business is thriving. Investments are still high. There's a lot of product to produce, and with Trump's election, he's encouraging that. Whether it's good or bad is not a question; it's a fact. So if you're a contractor and you've got a known owner, an investor that you've worked with successfully, you've got good relationships, they've got a nice big project, it keeps your business going, you probably make a margin that you'd like bigger, but nevertheless you make a margin. And you compare that with one where you're dealing with somebody that doesn't know what they're doing as an investor. They've got high expectations, not knowing how it's going to happen, and you're going to take a massive risk. So which business do you follow? So the first problem is, and I think we're seeing it as well, contractors, supply chain are saying, thank you, but no thank you. Now that's a major problem. The bigger problem is, and one of the executives from one of the big supply chain companies mentioned not long ago, before we change in this industry, a lot of companies are going to have to go bust. Now that is crazy, because we've got a limited number of players anyway. And we've got to wake up to that fact, that this is the reality. And therefore, there is an urgent need to change the way that we conceive and deliver projects such that doesn't happen. Because it doesn't help anybody, nobody. And it certainly doesn't help the environmental campaigns to decarbonise.
And are you seeing any signs of change? Any signs that people are rethinking this kind of risk, collaboration, projects, ideas?
Yes, I think that there are tiny nuggets showing through, but it's not common practice. And there are two, I wouldn't say culprits, but I can't think of a better word in this environment. It's the finance industry and the legal profession. And both are highly conservative in their thinking. And the notion that's been held for so long, for 50 years or so, that lump sum contracting or lump sum turnkey contracting means that the employer-owner doesn't take risk is just a myth, because it's not real. We've seen it with the failing projects, but we're still doing it. The idea that the contract word can protect you, it isn't. It's the behaviours. It's how do we work and to deliver projects effectively. The contract doesn't help. We've seen that. So the rethinking of who takes risk, and it's not just the taking of the risk, it's once a contractor has taken that risk, it's been allowed to manage it, and these contractors don't allow that. And it's it's a fundamental part of risk management. Fundamental. Risks should only be given and taken by the party that's able to manage it. Number one. Number two, that having done that, you've got to let them get on with it. But it doesn't happen. And that's why we have. It's not very difficult to understand why these projects fail. We create the failure, and there's no need. We can do it very differently if we just stop and think, how can we do it?
Well, a great note to end on, I think. Stop and think. What are we trying to do? How are we going to achieve it? And what's the best path forward? John, thank you so much for coming in and sharing some thoughts. Really appreciated it. I've been Ed Reed, editor of E-FWD. Thank you for watching.